These thoughts up in my head, things I never did. I took some L's, but I'm still here.
I got these thoughts up in my head. I toss and turn about some things I never said. I got regrets about some things I never did. I took some risks and took some L's, but I'm still here. And I know.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Overthinking Thoughts Pod. As always, journey with me as we keep our faith in a world full of chaos. I hope that your week's been going well. We are almost to March, which is crazy because I feel like we just got to 2025, but nevertheless, here we are. So if you are returning, thank you for coming back and listening to the podcast. Your support is greatly appreciated. If you are new here, welcome. And the concept is simple. We are choosing to keep our faith in a world full of chaos. We are not allowing things to break us or make us feel like we're not good enough or strong enough. My premise is really just dealing with anxiety of people who are overly anxious, overly worried, and just learning how to navigate this life by trusting in God, by keeping Him first, and trying to let go of those things that we don't need. So as you listen to the podcast, you will gain more understanding of kind of where I'm coming from. But I hope that you stick around, and I hope that you tell a friend to tell a friend and share this. Okay? Cool. All right, let's get right into it. We're not going to waste any time. I have a question for you. And the question is, what makes you think your plan is better than God's? What makes you think that your plan is better than God's plan? In case you didn't know, today we're talking about trading places. It's when you try to step in the way of what God has planned for you and try to be the dictator of a life that God has created. All right, so let's talk about it. I feel like as we go through life, we have these expectations and understandings of what we want to do. We have these goals, we have these visions, we have these dreams, which is amazing. And I think sometimes we forget who gave them to us. And I also think that we feel that once we get to a certain point, we can kind of push other things to the side and go, okay, cool, I got it. I'm on my own. I ain't worried about it. But the reality is that no matter how big you become, no matter where you go, no matter what your plans are, what your dreams are, look, if God's not in them, I mean, it just ain't gonna work. It's just not gonna work out the way you want it to. Sure, I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna be like, well, what about so and so? And then looking at them, and it looks like they got the life, they got the money, they got the cars, they got the clothes, they got the jewelry, they got the women, they got the houses, they got all that stuff. But you don't know spiritually what they have inside of them. And I think that's the key. We get so caught up in the outer appearance, we fail to look at the inside and ask, okay, well, how do they feel? What's going on? Are they okay? And are they really happy? I mean, I think that's really the big thing, but hey, that's neither here nor there. Anyway, there are some things that we should ponder. So when things don't go our way, why are we so quick to turn away? It seems like when things don't go the way that we planned it, we feel as if God gave up on us. Like we just we feel like we can't control the situation, which is a big issue. And then we decide like, well, maybe this just isn't what I'm supposed to do or how I'm supposed to do it or whatever the case may be. But here's the thing. We lose trust. There's a loss of trust when things don't go your way. Like if you counting on somebody and you say, hey, man, I'm counting on you to be there. I need you here at this time. And they're like, all right, cool, I got you. And they never show up. You're not going to trust that person again, right? So that's a problem. There's lack of love. You feel like you're not loved. You feel like when things don't go your way that people don't care, and then you isolate, and then you feel like you're nothing, and then you feel like, oh my gosh, this is it, and I have nothing. And that's not cool, because the reality is like you are somebody cares for you. But I do understand in those moments when you feel like it's not enough or nobody cares. Or the other thing too, we start to fill our minds with doubt. When things don't go our way, we're like, man, I guess this is it. This is this. There's nothing else. And I tried so hard to do this. I tried so hard to do that. And well, I guess, I don't know. I guess that's it. Like, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to move forward? We are so quick to doubt ourselves, but we forget to speak life. into ourselves so much. We think that when things don't go the way that we planned it, that everything is done, like everything is lost, everything is over. And that's not true. The reality is that maybe the path you were walking isn't the path you were meant to be on. So it had to stop because God had to redirect you. He had to redirect your steps. That's why you have to trust in him. That's why you have to trust that he's leading you down the right path. And I know it doesn't always look good. It doesn't always look glamorous. It's not the prettiest road. It's not the best road all the time in your mind, but it's designed to build you. And it's going to give you everything that you need to be successful. You just have to trust it. Because if you get to your destination unprepared, how can you truly enjoy it? How can you truly enjoy what God has for you if you didn't go through what God planned for you? It just doesn't work that way. So we have to do a better job of understanding, like, when things don't go our way, we want to step in the place of God and go, well, I got it. I'll do it my way. And then it becomes stressful. And then you get worried. And then you feel like it's not enough. And then you feel like nobody cares. And now all of a sudden, a situation that could have turned for the better now becomes worse because you've decided to take on this burden that you were never meant to carry. Because God told you he had it. You just didn't believe it. Belief is strong. And when you lose belief and you try to do it on your own, it's a good chance you're going to hurt yourself. So I would advise you to be very, very careful. You know, and the other thing, too, is like, as we go through these things, sometimes we start to think that we're we get a little arrogant. We think that we're better than him. So what do? We go our own path. We start doing things our way because we feel like the way God has called us is not good. The reason why I speak on these topics and things is because these are things that I've dealt with, things that I might be currently dealing with. And I also know that there's other people that may be going through the same thing, which is why this podcast is the way that it is. But I've felt that way before. You look at other people's lives and then you start doing that thing where you start comparing everything and you're going, well, this person is doing so much better over here and that person's doing so much better over there. And then you try to emulate what you see. And then you try to imitate what they do, and you realize that it is so much harder for you to do that, and you can't figure out why until you realize that isn't meant for you. So, no, it's not going to be easy for you. You have a path. You have a plan. You have to trust that plan is going to be beautiful, but we don't always do that because we are only seeing what's in front of us and not seeing beyond. And that's why you have to trust God, because God has a better plan beyond what we think. But we always trying to step in the way of what he's doing. And because he's not a pushy God and he's not going to force you to do anything, he's going to step out your way. The crazy part, too, is that when you do that and then you fall flat on your face and you look up and you be like, okay, God, I messed up. He's just like, all right, come on. And he picks you right up. That's how amazing God is. Knowing that you're going to fail and knowing that at some point he may have to step in, but he won't do it until you ask him. So sometimes it's just better to do it your way or do it God's way than your way. It's a little easier. Sometimes we make our own decisions when we're not supposed to. Have you been in that situation where you thought that this was the right thing to do? But you clearly heard God say, please don't do that. But you did it anyway, thinking like, oh, well, I know better. You're in that relationship where all the signs were like, don't do that. And you did it anyway. You took the job that you know you weren't supposed to take. You went out and did something you weren't supposed to do when you knew good and well you're supposed to stay home. And then everything crumbles around you and you're like, oh, crap, this was crazy. Yeah, sometimes we need to trust in God. It may seem like the fun option is being taken away from us, but the reality is it could be saving us. So you got to be really careful. You got to be really careful of where you're going, what you're doing, and what you're hearing. And when it comes to discernment, that's when you really have to trust in God's word and know what he's saying versus what the world is saying. Because the world's going to tell you all the things that you want to hear, but God's going to tell you what you need to hear. And sometimes what you need to hear is harsh. It is not, it doesn't come off well. Hits you right in the face and you're just like, oh my God, I don't want to hear that. Like, that's uncomfortable. I want to feel all these things, but a lot of that the world gives you is just empty promises anyway. God's truth is more fulfilling than anything that the world can give you. Keep that in mind. A lot of the actions too, when we try to go our own way or we feel like, God's not listening or whatever, a lot of it is very emotional. Like a lot of what we deal with are our own emotions instead of really trusting in God's truth. So like you deal with heartbreak or you go through something that's like tragic or something that you were really fighting for doesn't go your way. Then all of a sudden you get in your feelings. And it's okay to feel what you feel, but you also have to turn back to the creator. The problem is sometimes we feel what we feel and then we get angry or we decide to walk away because we feel like, oh, this didn't work out. Like look at these quote unquote celebrities that are now renouncing that they don't want to follow God anymore because I tried God and it didn't work out, or I was following God and God didn't do what I thought he was going to do, so I left. Look, man, God don't. First and foremost, let's just back up. The whole reason why you are where you are is because God decided to sacrifice his life for you. That's number one. Number two, he paid the debt that you could never repay. That's a big thing. Number three, he's seeing everything that you're going to be going through. He's preparing you for it. He's protecting you from it, or he's helping you go through it to build you into something better. And you're willing to throw all that away because it didn't go the way you wanted it to go. So instead of learning to understand the why, you're throwing a fit and deciding to do things your way. And then you get this temporary happiness, this temporary success. And then when it fails, you start chasing this imaginary high. And the reason why it's imaginary is because no matter how many times you chase it and you think you caught it, it doesn't really exist. Why you think you keep going back to it? It's not really there. It's unfulfilling. It's not promising. It actually is failing you, but you don't know any better because you don't want to talk to the one that is trying to guide you away from it to actually give you the better prize that he has for you, but you want to do it your own way. And then you wonder why you're in these positions. Maybe, possibly, it could be because you didn't want to trust the one that was going to lead you in the right direction. Now, I'm guilty of that because I've been through it. And I know that not every day is a great day. Some days I get caught up. I know that. But I also have to know that on those days, when that happens, I still can turn to God and say, hey, man, I messed up. This did not go the way I thought it was going to go. I really thought it was going to be different. And it didn't work out that way. What am I supposed to do? And sometimes God's just like, come on. Other times God's like, sit in it and I want you to learn from it and I'll tell you when to move. And that could be a while. But I'd rather trust that than to keep crashing and burn myself out and then realize that I could have fixed it a long time ago. And that's something, a lot of us have dealt with before. But when you try to play God and you're trying to do the inevitable, it doesn't work. Don't be trying to trade places with him. Let him do what he does and you stay out the way and allow him to pull you through whatever mess you're in, to guide you down whatever path you need to go, to build you into whatever person you need to be in order to truly be a child of God. But you also have to let him, you have to relinquish control. I know that's hard for some of us, but it's also necessary. So, yeah. So you're hearing all these things and we're talking about this stuff and it's like, all right, well, I guess what am I supposed to do? Like, how am I supposed to really understand what's going on? Or like, what do I do to better myself? So one of the things that I thought about was like, or the question I had was like, how do we truly get out of God's way? I feel like it's something you have to tell yourself every single day. It's not just it's a one thing. Because one day you might do a great job of getting out the way. And the other day you might be all in his way. So I think it goes back to the concept of like reading your word daily bread. Like every day you wake up, you gonna want to eat. If you just eat one meal on Monday and then it's Thursday, you haven't eaten anything, you're gonna feel some type of way. So it's a daily thing, right? So if we feel our bodies every single day, then we need to feel our spirits every single day. So we got to ask ourselves, well, how do I get out of God's way? How do I just say, hey, man, I know that I'm trying and I'm not doing the best that I can. I need to get out of the way. Like, what do I do? How do I make this work? Well, one of the ways to do that is to, one, pray to God daily. And number two, get in the word and to figure out what should I do. So I'm just going to a general verse that I think everybody knows, but holds a lot of power. Okay. It's Proverbs 3, verse 5. And I'm pretty sure you know it. And it is trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. A lot of times we get confused because we're trying to understand it and it's not meant for us to understand, or it's way more complex than what we thought. And as I was reading this verse, I took this. I went through the Faith app. I tried to look at like what that was. I also suggest that if you don't have a Bible, get one. If you are a man, you need to get the Every Man's Bible. I think it's great. It not only breaks down it has the verses, it's got other things like within the Bible where it talks about like what the books stand for, why was this written the way that it was written. But there's also like explanations of the verses, which is really cool. But also get the Faith app because I thought this was cool. It's like AI generated kind of. So I just asked like a verse about trusting and getting out of the way. Here's what it said. It said, lean not on your own understanding. To lean not on your own understanding means to surrender our limited human wisdom and trust God's infinite wisdom instead. Our perspective is limited. We can't see the full picture of our lives or understand God's greater purpose, but God sees everything, past, present, and future. We have a very limited view of what we see. God sees way more than we can ever imagine. He can see what's going to happen down the road. He can see what troubles may come your way. And then he's already preparing a way for you. So it's like when it gets difficult or when you feel like he's not there, maybe it's because he's so far ahead of you trying to prepare your path that if you tried to ask him right now, you wouldn't understand it. Or if you tried to get in his way, you would just halt your progress. So you have to let him go before you and prepare the way. So that way you're not falling into these traps. You're not falling into bad situations or getting yourself in odd scenarios that you can't get out of. And quiet as kept, since God is already preparing the way and God knows the plans that he has for you, why are we fighting against that? Why are we going against the grain? And there's a lot of people in your life that'll tell you that all this is a mythical thing. It doesn't exist. It is that and the third. Look, I know not everybody's going to believe. But what I would tell you to do is live your life in a way that where they have to question it daily. If you got these people that are coming to you and they're saying to you, oh, I don't believe in this. This is a fairy tale thing. It's all made up. This is stupid. It's all man-made. This, that, and the third. Just, okay, if that's what you believe, I'm going to pray for you. They may not accept your prayer. Pray for them anyway. Pray for them anyway. And then live your life in a way where they have to see it. Because if they keep coming around you, at some point, that spirit going to hit them. They're going to have to ask themselves, do I follow this? Do I go away from it? But live your life the right way. Do it the right way. Trust in God daily. And make sure that when you are walking your path, and make sure when you're walking in down the path that God has given you, the light that shines from you, shine it on them too. And maybe, just maybe, it'll save their life. But it's all in how you do it. And you got to trust. So there's that. Some of the reasons, though, outside of trusting in God, I wrote this down. I said a major reason why we try to move God out the way is because of our past. When you are hurt, that tends to be the only thing that you see. When you are damaged, that pain, it hurts hard. And because it hurts so hard, we don't want to give up control. We want to protect ourselves. We put up a barrier. We put up all types of things to keep people away from us because we never want to feel that again. And so as we're pushing people out the way, we're actually hurting ourselves because some of those people, and I'm not saying that everybody coming into your life is going to be great for you. You'll know. God will use the discernment and show you the way. But there are people that want to help. They want to lend a helping hand. They want to build you up. They want to see you grow. They want to shine God's light on you. But if your pain is outweighing who God is, then of course you'll never see what he can do. But if you give your pain over to God, not only will he turn that pain into a beautiful testimony, but he'll also show you the promises that he has for you. He'll also show you that this too shall pass. He'll also show you that where you are right now doesn't mean that that's where you're going to be in the future. Your history does not dictate your future. God can change anybody. You can read the Bible and see people who were corrupted, beat up, dismayed, not believing, didn't want to believe in Christ, didn't want to follow Christ. And then you see how he changed them, and then they became ambassadors for Christ. So if he did it back then, what makes you think he can't do it now? And what makes you think that he can't do it for you? Especially when you were made in his image. Think about that. Seriously, think about the magnitude of that. Think about how big that is. That's major. God's major. So if anybody can do it, he can. I also understand, like, there's a lot of trauma. And the one thing about trauma that I want to say is don't belittle your trauma. We see a lot that's out there, right? There are some major things that happen in people's lives. And I think a lot of times if you're dealing with something, but somebody comes with something bigger, we just put ours to the side and go, well, they clearly went through a lot. But you have your traumas too, which is why it's so important to talk to people, go to therapy, make sure you're getting it out. When my parents got divorced, I didn't think it was that big of a deal because other people were going through some crazy things in life. And I was just like, oh, no, that ain't got nothing to do with divorce. I'll be fine. Wasn't fine. There was a reason why I couldn't find love right away. There was a reason why I was putting everything into a relationship. There was a reason why I felt lonely, because that's what I was looking at, right? And I never really took the time to ask my parents, like, well, how are you overcoming this? And how are you, like, bettering yourselves? I never did that. I just thought, well, that happened. That's what it is. And there's nothing I can do to change it. So I better just find a way to overcome it. I'll just survive it. We weren't meant to survive. We were meant to thrive. But when you are belittling what you go through and you don't think it's that big of a deal, don't do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, if it bothers you, if it's something you feel like you need to fix, go talk to somebody about it and really, like, pour your heart into it so that way you can heal. There's people walking around that haven't healed yet because they're just so caught up in the fact that this happened. There's nothing that anybody can do, so it's just not going to work. But you'd be surprised. Going into therapy and talking about it let me know that there was much more hurt than I thought that I had. I thought I was over it. I was not. But had I not gone through that, had I not talked about it, I don't think I'd be able to be in the relationship that I'm in, raise the family that I have, be the man that I am today. There's still improvement. I still got stuff I got to work on, but at least I know now. So when those things surface again, I know how to handle it. I know how to express my feelings. I know how to talk to my people about it and say, okay, this is where I'm at, but this is what I need, and then I'm good. And I could come back and be better. And I feel like that, to me, you know, it played a major role in my life. And all I could do is be an advocate for it. So I hope that if you're hearing this, if you haven't talked about it, man, talk to somebody about it, seriously. And let that hurt out. And especially for men, because, you know, we're taught not to do that stuff. We get talked about. People still come on this app. I saw a guy on TikTok last night who was pouring his heart out, talking about how he had nobody to talk to, nobody to turn to, nobody to reach out to. And there were a lot of comments that were supportive, but then there were men in the comments like, man, suck it up, bro. Like, you being soft. Don't be getting on this app crying. But what if that's the only outlet? If that man held that in, he might not be here today. You got to let people experience what they're going through. If they got to cry it out, man. This whole, you got to be tough, you can't show no emotion, that's going to damage you in the long run. The emotions are a part of us. The feelings, it's what we feel. It's how we cope. It's how we grieve. It's how we mourn, but it's also how we move on. We got to know how to heal before we can start healing others. And we also have to heal because the inner child, the younger self, is looking to see, what did we do? How do we overcome this? So if they're looking at older you and you ain't healed yet, they're losing all hope. But if you are healing, you can look back and go, I know things were crazy, but I also know things are going to be okay. And I know the person that can help you with that. But it's up to you to decide on if you want to follow them or not. But I would pray on that. I really would. I think about, life I lived and some of the failures that I had. And you kind of question, as you go through, you start seeing things differently and you wonder, why are things happening the way that they're happening, right? You start looking at ways you could have done better, and especially like I guess with me now, like looking at my kids, because now I got two boys, right, and they're looking up to me, trying to figure out like Dad's got the answers, and I'll be like, man, sometimes I feel like I'll be failing because I look back at what I've been through or what I've done or how I like try to overcome it, and then like I see it in them, and then I try to tell them like, hey, don't go that route, but then I be feeling guilty because I'm like, but I did that before, but then I have to step back and remember like, yo. You experienced it. It wasn't pleasant, but you can be the teacher for your children to be better. You can help them break generational curses. You can help them see things differently than what they have. And yeah, they're going to go through some things that I can't protect them from everything. I could do my best, and I will do my best. But there's going to be some things that they just need to experience. But I will be there. And I think that, to me, that right there is enough for me to remember, like, okay, regardless of what you go through, son, I will be there. Regardless of what you're facing, no matter what you're dealing with, I will be there. I got you covered. No matter how difficult it is, no matter how bad you might think it is, I'm there. Because I might have experienced it, or even if I didn't, I'm going to help you figure it out. And we're going to trust God through the whole process. But I'm going to be there. Because I had to learn from my mistakes, and I want to make sure that I'm better, and I've always wanted to be a father for these specific reasons, to make sure that when you get to that point of being your own man, you have enough lessons in you, you have enough resources in you, and you got somebody to fall back on if you need something. I got you covered. And when God says it's my time to go and you got to do this thing on your own, you'll have enough resources and you'll have enough spirit in you to know that you got it. You got it, and you're going to be just fine. But that's something I think about daily because I'm always thinking about my boys. Always, always, always. And I want to make sure like I do my best for them. Because it's what I do, right? The other thing, too, that I want to tell you. You may not understand the why behind what happened. But God can turn it into a win. You may not understand why you went through something. You may not understand why you experienced something. You may not understand why you had to go through this and why you had these different emotions and why you felt the way that you felt. But in the midst of that why, if you give it to God, he could turn it into a win. He could turn it into a testimony. He could turn it into victory for you. God has a plan for you. And I am a believer in that all things work together for the greater good. And I do believe that God will help you. All you got to do is ask him. And all you got to do is be true with him and say, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm doing. I've been trying to get in the way because I haven't been trusting you. And I know it's hard for me to do that. But I'm going to do my best to step out of the way. And if I start to get back in the way, Lord, just remind me that you have it. Help me to trust in you and not lean on my own understanding. And remember, we got to do that daily. It's a daily process. So before I go, I want to leave you with 3 keys of getting out of God's way. The very first thing is simple. Get out of God's way. Like, let him work. Have you noticed that when you've given control to God, God blesses you in ways that you never thought were possible? You could look at a situation that you were in and see where you are now and be like, whoa, how did I get from here to here? I think you know why, but you got to be able to acknowledge it too. Trust that God has a plan for every situation. God has something for you in everything that you face. God is willing to work with you in every aspect of life. All you have to do is say, dear God, here I am. This is my issue. This is what I'm dealing with. This is what I'm facing. I need to know how to make it through. I trust you. I believe, but help my unbelief. I know that at a certain point, You might not move as fast as I thought you were, and I might try to jump in, but help me to just stay patient and help me to get out of your way so you can do what it is that you do best. And not just for negative moments, but for the positive moments too, because you don't want to get so high up that you forget who got you there. So it's also like, hey, God, help me get out of the way of that when I achieve this success, that it's not about me, but it's about how you bless me, how you develop the path for me. And it allows somebody else to see that trusting in God allows you to get to places that you can't get to on your own. Believe in God and trust in God in all aspects of life, so that way you can fully feel his presence and be blessed in abundance. But you got to get out of his way. That's number one. Number two, don't lean on your own understanding. Stop trying to figure out what God is doing and just let God do what he does. It's not a jigsaw puzzle. It's not trivia. Just let God move, okay? And I think that as time goes on, the most important thing to do is just to continue to trust and know that at the end of the day, God loves you. God is with you. God cares about you. And because he loves you and he's with you and he cares for you, he's going to do his best to make sure that you are taken care of. But stop trying to understand it all the time. I know we're curious beings. We want to know what's going on. We always want to be in the mix. We always want to know what's happening. We want that main character energy. And sometimes you just got to step back and let God work. So yeah, there's a lot of things in my life right now that I don't understand. You know, there's things that I wish I could be doing right now, things that I love, and God knows that I love it, and God knows that I want it, but I don't have it yet. And I just have to trust that he will prepare it when the time is right. It's hard too, because when you see it every day, you're like, man, I want to be there. And God's like, in due time. So don't lean on your own understanding. Allow God to take care of it for you. And then when he hands it to you, be thankful for it, but never forget where it came from. And then my last point, stay faithful to God. No matter how difficult it gets, no matter how hurt you get, no matter what emotions you face, no matter what obstacles you got to go through, no matter what it is that you're dealing with, stay faithful to God. We always want to give God glory when he gives us something and when we didn't have to go through anything. But we tend to turn away from God when we got to go through something bad and we're like, well, God wasn't there. No, he is there, but he's showing you something. And you got to ask yourself daily, what is it that God is trying to show me in this situation? I might be in a dark season, but praise him anyway. I might be going through a bad situation, but praise him anyway. I mean, currently speaking, my bank account is not where I want it to be, but I'm just going to trust God that he's got me covered. That even though I look at it and I go, man, I want more, I know that God will provide me with everything that I need and then some. And I just have to trust his timing. And I know that's not the easiest thing to do when you're going through life and you're seeing it around you every single day. When the world is telling you one thing and you're watching other people go that route, and it seems like they're just getting everything and it just seems easy. And you're sitting up there going, Lord, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to move? This is ridiculous. It doesn't make sense, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like through all those things and through all the aspects of life, the biggest thing to remember is to just stay faithful to God. He will make a way. He knows your path. Trust him. And in those moments where maybe you fall short or maybe you fail, come back to him anyway. Because he does love you. And that won't change. He's always loved you. Even before you even existed. He knew all these things that were going to happen. He knew everything that you might face. And he still loves you. So trust him and stay faithful, okay? Okay. Basically put, get out the way. just get out the way, man. He got it. All right. I think that's all I got. So once again, thanks for tuning in to the Overthinking Thoughts Pod. I really appreciate those that are rocking with me and following me. So if you want to know more about what we do, how we operate, man, you can find me on YouTube, the Overthinking Thoughts Pod. I also stream on Spotify and Apple Podcasts at the Overthinking Thoughts Pod. Try to keep it simple as well. And then my socials, you can catch me on Instagram at Overthinking Thoughts Pod. You can also catch me on TikTok at Overthinking Thoughts Pod. Other than that, man, spread the word. I really appreciate those that share my content or comment, like whatever the case may be. I do appreciate you. And I really do pray that these messages give you something to hold on to. So remember, don't be anxious about anything, but in everything with prayer, petition, and thanksgiving, present your requests to the Lord, okay? Do that. And I hope you have a blessed week. I hope that you stay strong. I hope that you trust God. Try it. Just step out the way and say, okay, God, I got it. Just be along for the ride. But know that when it's all said and done, you're going to have a victory unlike any other because God's the one that's in charge. All right? All right. As always, I believe in you. I go believe in yourself. All right? So Overthinking Thoughts Pod. I'm Ed. We out.